Okay, then he really let loose once Roman Quadri League wrote to the inquiry claiming that Peter Dutton's Chief of Staff had said that he'd wanted help for the boss's mate in Brisbane. So then came this statement, and it went straight to what he had said, and he described it basically as fabrication. He said it was bitterness over his sacking, and he'd made an enormous error of judgment. Then there was this, though. He'd asked the current commissioner to offer Mr Quadri League support to address his personal or mental health issues. Gerard, do you think that was an appropriate thing for a minister to throw into the mix?
Well, I can understand. If you're getting bashed up, people tend to respond. I mean, I do. I don't know what you're like. And he's had a lot of criticism. I mean, what we're dealing with here is a decision by a minister some years ago to allow two young women, possibly a third, or two young women in on tourist visas for about 3 months, and then they're not overstayers and they went home. I mean, I think this has been a huge beat up. I understand why the Labor Party's doing it, I understand why the Greens are doing it. I think in the media it's been a huge beat up. Now, because we're dealing with wealth here, I'll just give you a brief story. My wife was asked by an African Australian about a couple, a young family, was about to be deported to the subcontinent. Yep. I approached Peter Dutton. The matter was examined. It was decided the department had acted unfairly in this instance. They got their residential visas. They didn't play polo. They had no money. So the idea that Peter Dutton's only helping out people who are wealthy or who play polo who work for graziers or squatters, as some people have called them, is just unfair. And I can understand why he fires back.
But hang on a minute. Didn't you just take a case to him?
I took a case to him.
Well, but isn't that the point, Gerard?
It is the point.
And isn't that the point of why this story is not a beat-up? Because immigration ministers have broad discretion. Yeah. They can exercise their power in very broad-ranging ways, and that's quite a power to hand to a politician. And in order for the community to be comfortable with politicians exercising that power, they have to be comfortable that that power is being exercised in fair and equitable ways, that all cases are treated equally. Now, you've brought a case to the minister. I'm not saying the case wasn't justified, and obviously the minister made a determination on the facts. But not everybody can contact the minister. Not everybody can.
But he has a right, and he gets thousands of requests from, and Labor ministers did before him. But in this case, I mean, you can't tell me, you don't know anything about the circumstances.
No,
I don't know.
No,
but the idea that every decision made by every immigration official at every airport was someone arriving and they say, oh, I've got a suspicion that you're not here for the proper reasons, get back on the next plane. You can't tell me that every one of those decisions is always the correct decision.
Malcolm?
Well, look, I think it's the perception of ad hoc decision-making. Let's be straight up there. There is no evidence whatsoever that Peter Dutton has acted in response to any inducement or personal relationship.
And he's entitled to make these
And
judgments.
he's perfectly entitled to make those decisions. He's been asked by a whole range of people. But it's the fact we're talking about au pairs and Argentinian polo players raises the perception that there's one rule for some and another rule for others. There's ad hocery in an administration that prides itself on its steely imposition of restrictions on, say, people in detention centres in Nauru, and that if you can make a phone call to Peter Dutton's office, you're more likely to get a response than otherwise. Let me just point out a happy fact for you. 75% of all FOI applications made to the government are made to the Department of Immigration, primarily to question why visas weren't granted. So it's a huge issue. People have to go through all that to settle their visa issues. Some people can just make a phone call.
But here we've got to get it correct. Here we're dealing with 3 months tourist visas. We're not dealing with refugees. We're not dealing with applications to become residents. We're not dealing with work visas. We're dealing with 3-month tourist visas, and the people having got the 3 months went home. We're not dealing with overstayers. These are a couple of young women some years ago who got in the country for 3 months. Oh, my God, you know. Really.
Though he did describe at the time that as a humanitarian decision taken by a generous country.
Well, it probably was.
By a generous country.
I couldn't quite work that one out.
But hang on, if I land in Britain and the official at Heathrow thinks I'm not there for the right reason and sends me back even if I am there for the right reason, that's a humanitarian issue. That's a matter of justice. I mean, you can't assume that these women were lying or were wrong. I don't know.
I get the feeling, Peter Dutton might, in part, enjoy this coming week. He gets the platform in the Parliament. You've seen how he operates.
Well, there are a lot of Labor case studies.
He'll be ready for it.
And today, he's issued a statement about he's upping border patrols using the Navy and the RAF, and he's getting really gung-ho. I think you're right. I think he will enjoy using these the big hits he expects from Labor, not only to hit back at Labor, and he'll do it so with some precision and names named, I would assume, but also to pump up his credentials as the man who looks after our borders.
Though he's